Those who have never been in law enforcement cannot fully comprehend the courage and strength of character it takes to walk our path every day. They will never know how it feels when the Sallyport door closes behind you, how it feels to respond to an emergency, not knowing if one of your fellow officers is down, or if you will be vulnerable by responding. We each fulfill our mission as correctional workers first, committed to the highest level of performance, because we understand that our contributions to public safety outweigh the risks. Law enforcement professionals respond to a unique calling, to protect the public at all costs, despite the formidable challenges and dangers inherent to our work. We do so without any expectation of recognition or praise, and we proudly stand our posts with integrity, keenly aware of whom we are and what we are meant to do. The past 18 months have been unlike anything we've experienced in the field of corrections, in this country or in the world. While we may have faced pandemics in the past and learned from them, the world was just not prepared for the devastating impact of COVID-19. Last year, when we canceled Correctional Workers Week and our annual service at the Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, we thought the vaccine would allow us to return to normal, or at least a close resemblance of normal. Yet, here we are. Correctional Workers Week 2021 was postponed from May until September, and we cannot have an in-person memorial service to honor our staff killed in the line of duty again this year. It is, however, our solemn duty to honor the staff who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. This year, in lieu of an in-person memorial service, we have created a video highlighting some of our agency's history while commemorating the lives of our 26 fallen heroes. They were ordinary people, much like you and I, but they faced extraordinary circumstances and acted with courage, honor, and self-sacrifice. They must never be forgotten.
The Three Prisons Act of 1891 created a federal prison system and authorized the first 3 federal penitentiaries: USP Leavenworth, USP Atlanta, and USP McNeil Island. The system existed for nearly 40 years and grew to include 11 federal prisons. The wardens functioned autonomously, for the most part, with limited oversight by the Superintendent of Prisons, a Department of Justice official in Washington, D.C. The dangers of working in law enforcement and corrections have always been evident, and the creation of the federal prison system was not immune. It was 10 years before the nation's first federal prison line of duty death occurred, but the risks were obvious from the very beginning.
Joseph B. Waldrop, November 10th, 1901, USP Leavenworth.
Andrew F. Turner, March 26, 1916, USP Leavenworth.
Edgar A. Barr, March 19, 1917, USP Leavenworth.
James R. Brock, December 27, 1917, USP Atlanta.
Andrew H. Leonard, November 14th, 1922, USP Leavenworth.
Robert G. Warnke, June 20, 1929, USP Leavenworth.
On May 14, 1930, Congress established the Federal Bureau of Prisons within the Department of Justice and charged the agency with the management and regulation of all federal penal and correctional institutions. The agency assumed the responsibilities of oversight, management, and administration of the 11 federal prisons in operation at the time. 6 federal prison system staff had already been killed in the line of duty. Sanford Bates, the first director of the Bureau of Prisons, oversaw the construction of the new agency's first penitentiary, USP Lewisburg. He also established the first medical facility, the United States Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri, and began the long-standing partnership with the United States Public Health Service. Director Bates also established the federal prison industries to focus on helping offenders acquire work skills necessary to become law-abiding, contributing members of society. In 1934, the Bureau of Prisons opened the first maximum security prison, USP Alcatraz. 4 years later, James V. Bennett, the agency's second director, learned of the brutal killing of a staff member there.
Royal C. Klein, May 23, 1938, USP Alcatraz.
Eight years passed before the Battle of Alcatraz occurred. The major disturbance and failed escape attempt resulted in 2 more correctional officers at the maximum security prison making the ultimate sacrifice.
Harold P. Stites, May 2nd, 1946, USP Alcatraz.
William A. Miller, May 3, 1946, USP Alcatraz.
The 1940s and 50s brought increased population growth in the establishment of inmate classification and the development of security levels, concepts still in practice today. Director Bennett, the Bureau's longest-serving director, also influenced key legislation, including an amendment to the Youth Corrections Act, making new options available for the rehabilitation and treatment of juvenile delinquents in the federal prison system. In 1960, the Bureau was operating the National Training School in Washington, D.C., where an escape attempt by 3 juveniles resulted in the death of a correctional officer.
William W. Latimer, October 15, 1960, National Training School.
During the 1960s, the medical model became the predominant theory in corrections. The Bureau's inmate population growth grew stabilized, but the number of institutions had grown from 24 in 1940 to 36 in 1960. Merrill Alexander was named the third director in 1964, and the Robert F. Kennedy Youth Center, now FCI Morgantown, opened in 1969, replacing the National Training School in Chillicothe Reformatory. Earlier that year, the Bureau had suffered another loss.
Vern M. Jarvis, January 26, 1969, USP Maryland.
Norman Carlson became the director of the Bureau of Prisons in 1970 and remained in the position until 1987. Early in the 1970s, it was becoming apparent that the medical model was ineffective and the agency adopted a balanced model of corrections. During Director Carlson's tenure, the inmate population remained steady with little growth until the passing of the Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 1984, which created many new federal crimes, abolished parole, reinstituted the federal death penalty, and established sentencing guidelines. Although the Bureau of Prisons experienced some of its most difficult and brutal staff assaults and murders during his time as director, including October 22, 1983, one of the darkest days in the agency's history, the Carlson era is often referred to as the Bureau's most influential period.
Wayne L. Sell, July 31st, 1973, USP Leavenworth.
John W. Johnson, September 29, 1974, USP Leavenworth.
Donald F. Reese, February 28, 1975, FCI El Reno.
Janice R. Hyland, November 21st, 1979, USP Atlanta.
Gregory J. Gunter, December 25th, 1982, FCI Petersburg.
Gary L. Rowe. February 7th, 1983, MCC, San Diego.
Merle E. Klutz, October 22nd, 1983, USP Marion.
Robert L. Hoffman, October 22nd, 1983, USP Marion.
Boyd H. Spikerman, January 29, 1984, FCI, Oxford.
The inmate population continued to grow in the late 1980s, and J. Michael Quinlan became the 5th director of the Bureau of Prisons following the retirement of Norm Carlson in 1987. 3 months after becoming director, he was informed a staff member had been killed and another wounded during a brazen escape attempt.
Robert F. Miller, October 12, 1987, USP Lewisburg.
The month after Officer Miller was killed, Director Quinlan was confronted with the disturbances at USP Atlanta and FDC Oakdale. In a very short period of time, the 2 Bureau facilities were taken over by inmates, and 140 individuals, Bureau staff, contractors, and INS staff, were taken hostage between the 2 locations. Over $64 million of BOP property was destroyed before the crisis was peacefully resolved. In 1991, a similar incident occurred at FCI Talladega. By 1990, the Bureau's inmate population had reached 65,000, an increase of more than 40,000 inmates during the previous decade. Kathleen Hawk Sawyer became the Bureau's first female director in 1992. She introduced the Forward Thinking Initiative to better prepare the agency to meet future demands and conditions. Early in her tenure as director, the Violent Crime Conduct and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 had a substantial impact on agency operations, specifically in sentence reductions for inmates participating in drug treatment programs. The year ended with a murderous inmate assault on a staff member, the first of 2 line-of-duty deaths while she was the director.
D. Antonio A. Washington, December 22, 1994, USP Atlanta.
Scott J. Williams, April 3rd, 1997, USP Lompoc.
In 1997, the Bureau was required to absorb the entire DC felony population. By the end of 2000, the inmate population had jumped to over 145,000, more than twice what it was in 1990. The first federal execution since 1963 was conducted at the new Special Confinement Unit at USP Terre Haute in 2001. In 2003, Harley Lappin became the agency's 7th director. During his tenure, several statutes were enacted with long-term impacts for the agency, including the Prison Rape Elimination Act of 2003, the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act of 2006, and the Second Chance Act of 2008. In June of 2008, the Bureau would incur the tragic loss of another staff member.
Jose V. Rivera, June 20th, 2008, USP Atwater.
Charles E. Samuels Jr. became the 8th director in 2011 and was faced with record inmate population levels and extreme crowding. He was committed to staff safety and enhancing the Bureau's reentry mission. Director Samuels' emphasis on labor management relations was critical to achieving significant advances needed to enhance staff safety, including having a second officer in high security housing units, the authorization to carry and use OC spray, and the implementation of stab-resistant vests. Perhaps his motivation stemmed from 2 consecutive days in early 2013 when 2 staff members at 2 separate institutions were murdered in unrelated incidents for simply doing their job. Eric J. Williams, February 25th, 2013, USP Canaan.
Osvaldo O. Alvarate, February 26, 2013, MDC Guaynabo.
Thankfully, in the past 8 years, there have been no line-of-duty staff deaths. The Bureau's inmate population saw the first decline after 34 years of growth. History was made when President Barack Obama visited FCI El Reno. He was the first sitting president to visit a federal prison. Director Samuels retired at the end of 2015, and the Bureau had an acting director until the selection of Mark Inch as the 9th director in August 2017. Director Inch was the agency's first director who was not a career employee. He resigned in May 2018, and an acting director led the Bureau again. In December 2018, Congress passed the First Step Act, bipartisan criminal justice legislation that reformed federal prisons and sentencing laws to reduce recidivism, decrease the federal inmate population, and maintain public safety. The First Step Act has had significant impact on most areas of the Bureau's operations. In August 2019, the Attorney General appointed Kathleen Hawk Sawyer to a second term as Director of the Bureau of Prisons. She now holds the distinction of being the first female director of the agency and the first director to serve 2 terms. During her 6-month tenure, she led the agency in its implementation of the First Step Act, including initial risk assessments for all federal inmates, and assisted in identifying long-term leadership for the Bureau. The Attorney General appointed Michael Carvajal as the 11th Director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons on February 25, 2020.
Hearing of a senseless death of a fellow staff member is something that stays with you throughout your career. Each time you walk through a Sally Port, pass by institution's memorial wall, or honor the fallen during Correctional Workers Week, you recall pieces of their stories, their legacies. Between 1891 and 1930, as a federal prison system, there were 6 in the line of duty deaths. Since 1930, when Congress established the Federal Bureau of Prisons, 20 additional staff have made the ultimate sacrifice. The tragic loss of 26 lives, inspiring display of courage and dedication to our mission, to public safety, and to our country, is why it is our duty to honor these fallen heroes. It is also why they will never be forgotten.